Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, and I'm here, I'm very happy to say, in the company of two stalwarts of Plank of the Week. One hasn't been here for a while now, he's been moaning to me about it. Will Geddes, welcome back for the first time in 2021.
I know.
I'm sorry to say it's taken this long to get you back.
I've been in the wilderness, Michael.
But listen, you haven't been off my mind. I've been thinking about you a lot, so I just wanted to know that. Emily
Now that's
Carver,
even worrying.
who was just here the other week actually, but it makes a welcome return. We've got a lot of plankery to discuss, guys. Who wants to go first? You should go first, because you haven't been in for a
really?
while.
Okay.
I think you should.
Again, I think as we probably would agree that there's a long and rich list of potential candidates.
There is.
But I think the most prevalent one for me that I would immediately come to would be the Eurovision.
Yes.
Just as a whole.
And I will just use it as an umbrella.
Do you call it the Eurovision now? Is it not the Eurovision Song Contest?
Just the Eurovision.
Or just Eurovision?
Just the Eurovision for me, Michael.
Okay.
That's painful
The
enough.
Eurovision.
Are you correcting
That's
his
painful
grammar?
enough.
Well, I don't think it's called the Eurovision. I think it's either Eurovision or the Eurovision Song Contest.
The Eurovision.
Okay. But I quite like the fact that you're misnaming it.
Well, the whole thing is
quite enjoy
horrific.
that.
I mean, it's the
It
closest
really is.
I would
Everything
say
about it.
that could get to white noise, Guantanamo Bay
Yep.
kind of level.
It really is.
And I did have to sit through the entire event, which I think was the first time since
Why?
I was 12. Well, I was with some friends
Okay.
who,
Were
I
they
don't know,
having a
they wanted to
Eurovision
make it into
party?
a drinking game or something like that.
Because people do have Eurovision parties. I can't imagine anything worse.
Yeah.
I've been
Did you
to
have
one and yeah.
Really?
I
left
could see
early.
you on. I could see you on, Emily, actually.
It's not really my cup of tea though, you know?
It really isn't. Bizarrely, Julia Hartley-Brewer said that she quite liked it. She asked me, I came in to do a handover with her last week, and she was like, will you be watching the Eurovision? I just went, no. That was it. You know,
Yeah.
There was nothing else to say.
I think that's a fair point.
But she was quite enthusiastic
Really?
about it.
I think we need to have words.
I think we
don't
do.
We do.
We really do.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a general thing for Eurovision. Not only the bin man that was our entry that Neil wanted it. I could only best describe he looked like a bin man.
Yeah, and he's the brother of somebody who's had a couple of hits. I mean, is this the new qualification now? As long as you've got a member of the family.
but
What I
who's-
don't understand is, are you not allowed to put forward like a good act?
Well, I used
Do
to,
they have
I
to
used
be
to
an
say this.
unknown?
When I was a younger man, in fact, not even a man, I was a boy, I said, why don't put Led Zeppelin in for it? Yeah, I'm sure they'd win it.
They wouldn't want the humiliation of losing. Because the whole thing is completely rigged. Every country votes for its neighbours.
Yes.
Everybody hates the UK. Let's.
But do you know what I
let's not
also
make
hate,
jokes
though, is
about
all
it.
these people complaining. It's all about the Europeans. They hate us. I mean, it's a contest of nonsense. It's not really worth taking seriously
hang on.
as a political event. Do you
It's
know what I
also
mean?
Eurovision that
Get
has
over it.
Australia that also
And Israel.
competes in it, and Israel. And I would defy anybody who watched the show to tell me the name of any of the entries or the song names
Yes.
that competed. And I think most
All I
people
know
would be
really is
challenged.
that the Italians won it, and they were sort of a collection of what can only be described as non-binary individuals. Would that be right?
I to be honest, Michael, my brain
don't know.
had kind of fried by that
Yeah.
stage. I
How
think
many
I did
drinks
turn
had
off
you
before
had by
that.
then?
I think the only one anyone can remember is that bearded lady.
Bearded lady a few years ago.
We're talking a few
Iceland?
years back, Emily. Yeah.
No, I think she was Eastern European
Eastern
somehow.
European.
She was
She
was
Austrian.
Israeli,
No,
I think.
Austrian, I think.
Israeli.
Israeli.
Yes.
Was she
She
not
was
Austrian?
Israeli. I'm ashamed that I even remember that.
That is. You do this every year,
loves
don't
it.
you? You're watching
Actually,
it
I'm
every
a
year.
secret fan.
watching
The
it every
secret's
year.
out.
I mean, they were your first plank, but
Will Eurovision Geddes.
He doth protest too
Yes.
much.
I mean, I thought you were going to tell me you had to be there for some reason
I
because you were
did.
protecting somebody.
Well, the people from watching the show, evidently, and overconsumption of
Also,
alcohol.
wasn't there some kind of untoward incident towards the end of the show as well, which you...
Yeah, there was allegedly a member of the Italian winners who was closely inspecting, I believe, some kind of dust particles on their table.
on a glass table
that
in
he
front
was
of
trying to clear or relieve
Yeah.
at the table, from what I understand, allegedly.
Obviously, we wouldn't want to make
Allegedly.
any kind of
Of course, cruel
accusations.
aspersions of
No.
no,
criminality.
he's a plank.
That would be wrong.
Yeah, but when you've got lots of cameras around,
Yeah.
maybe you leave that dust for now.
But also
get the pledge
fact
out
that, I mean,
later.
but the fact that we, as a British entry, got 0 points, nil point, and it's the same every year. The same people get worked up. The same people get, terribly upset with all of these Eastern European countries. They all vote for each other. So what? It's a TV show. It doesn't really matter, does it?
So are we going to drop out of it though? Apparently,
Are we?
Well, we're
Yeah.
not in Europe anymore, but I suppose you don't have to be in Europe to be in it.
No,
'cause,
exactly.
As you said, Australia and
Israel.
Israel are in it.
Yeah.
I think we should stay in it. I don't really care.
Really,
I don't watch it.
I don't care.
I mean,
I won't be watching it
We're
again.
net contributors,
Yes.
much like we were in the EU.
Very similar, yeah,
Yes.
and it's almost as appalling to watch. But although, even I couldn't watch much of the European Parliament sitting. I mean, I could watch about the first act, and then that was it.
Probably about
Oh,
on
I
the
used to
same
watch
interest
that
level.
as a hobby.
Did you?
Yeah.
I
A
love
bit
the
of Dan
fact,
Hanan.
yeah, the fact that they could only speak. I think you're only allowed to speak for like 60 seconds or something, aren't you, in the European Parliament? That's what all of my former
don't know
MEP
all the
friends
regulations.
tell me. No, they said they deliberately, you can't get up and make like a big filibustery type speech in order to stop anyone else from speaking. You can only speak for a minute.
Was that only
Well,
Nigel Farage then who did
Well,
that?
it was just Farage who was,
Yeah.
but no, they always had to shut you down after literally, it was either 1 or 2 minutes, and that was all you could do. There's no kind of big, you can't make the big 5-hour speech that nobody else can talk in a debate. They can't do it. Bizarre.
Well, perhaps we should do that with the SNP over here.
Yeah, we should.
What's his
Funnily
chops?
enough, we'll be talking about the SNP and Eurovision in a little while. But for the moment, the first nominee is
sir.
the Eurovision. So there
The
we are.
Eurovision.
The Eurovision. The whole thing. The whole
whole
kit
thing.
and
the whole
caboodle.
kit caboodle.
Yeah, including people who hate it. So who's your first one, Emily?
So mine is Prince Harry. He
Yes.
had to come back again.
He really did. I mean, normally we carry him over, but today I think we'll just put him in by his own volition.
If anyone was in doubt that he wasn't just a plank but also as thick as one, there's been a lot of examples. There's been a lot going on. He's made a tit of
really
himself
has.
a lot this week.
He really has. And every week you think, well, he can't have anything else to say, can he? But he keeps finding new outlets, right? If it's not Spotify, it's Apple Music or something, or Apple Podcast, and then it's, Netflix, and then it's Oprah and CBS. I mean, he seems to have a panoply of places where he can invade his own privacy.
Yes, I don't know
Constantly.
if this was mentioned in the last one. I think it happened just after the last week's Plank of the Week. But obviously he decided to go on a podcast and go after the US Constitution.
Oh, yes.
After only
Oh,
having
yes.
lived in the US for what? A year or so. I think it was March 2020 he moved over there. So he's been there for a year and a bit, and he decided not to go after the Second Amendment,
No.
which a lot of Brits do.
Yes.
A lot of celebrities, it's sort of the in vogue thing to do. But he decided to go after the First Amendment, which of course
Which he
is
doesn't
freedom
understand.
of speech.
Apparently, he doesn't understand it.
Yes, and then he said after talking about it for a little while, he said, I don't really understand it anyway. Then maybe
How
we
can you
should be
not
talking about
understand
it then.
How can you not understand it? I mean, it's not exactly difficult to understand.
I can't
free
remember the
speech.
words he actually used. He said it was a bit bonkers or something.
Yes, he
thought
And
it
said
bonkers.
The First Amendment's a bit bonkers. Hang on.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Yes, freedom
which
of
is
speech.
kind of what you're doing right now, Harry, isn't it?
But
Yeah,
of
because-
course, the reasoning was obviously because the paparazzi are all over him. So
Yeah.
obviously, freedom of speech in the press is obviously not good for himself.
No.
But what's he doing? He's saying this to the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is then going to be in the papers, which we've seen.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance
There
there,
really
isn't
is.
there, for
Well,
Harry?
I mean, he's obviously getting his instructions from Meghan. Everything he
Yes.
says sort of it sounds like she's saying, except it's coming out of his mouth.
Could you give us
He's
an
also-
example,
I
Michael?
could if you with Meghan, Harry. You know, it was their wedding anniversary this week as well.
Was it?
Oh, how
Third
lovely.
wedding anniversary. Can you imagine
I'm
poor old Harry
surprised-
scrambling about on Rodeo Drive, going, "What the hell can I get her that she's going to like?"
You know what? I'm surprised Norwich Council didn't
How about a
make the most
Bentley?
of that.
You know, seriously though, can you imagine being married to her?
Yeah, also just he's such a plank because he's I mean, we talk about this, but he goes on and on about mental health,
Yeah.
about his mental health, the mental health of his family, and so on. And then
He doesn't care about the mental health of his other family
he
over
doesn't
here.
care about his old family,
No.
does he? He's like, you've had the Queen in the media. Apparently, she's been absolutely devastated
Yeah,
by
well,
everything.
you would be.
Yeah.
Of course, his father. Of course, Prince William's also in the press. Apparently,
Prince
he's
Philip
been
just
saying,
passing
away.
why on earth does he have to talk about this to the press?
Well, it's worse than
Why
that.
on earth are you
because
doing
not
it,
only
Harry?
is he sort of insulting his own dad by saying that he was a terrible father, and
Yeah.
it's not his fault really though, because his parents were also awful, i.e. the Queen,
Yeah.
who is Charles's mother. He's now chucking her under the bus, going, "Oh yeah, well she was awful."
And his
hopeless."
recently deceased
And his recently
grandfather.
deceased, yeah, exactly. And also, I saw a video that somebody put up on social media this week of he and William when they were a bit younger, sort of larking about the house with Charles.
Yeah.
Clearly very happy and, just having a good time. And because Charles did, I mean, I've talked to a couple of royal correspondents, he would take them on skiing holidays. It was clearly a kind of rapport between the three of them. They all got along.
Yeah.
So he's completely reinventing
Yeah.
history to make out that his life was awful.
Well, I'm not
It didn't
saying
look
that
like it
I
was
would want to
awful.
be in the royal family with that bunch of well, a mixed bag, isn't
Yes.
it, really? But I mean, at 36, to be going on and on about what happened to you as a child.
My favourite
I think
line.
oversharing
It's
is a key word
Yes.
here,
Yeah,
Yeah,
really,
we don't
isn't
need
it?
to emote all the time.
No.
Yeah.
Like, seriously,
My
just
favourite-
talk to your therapist.
Well, also, I mean, there was a piece in the Mail a while back where they said that he's sounding like a guy who's just had too much therapy.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
You know.
You're not allowed to say that now, though, because
Well, no, you have to preface everything with, well, of course we understand that he's got mental health difficulties, and obviously we would never question that.
it's like with COVID, any death is a tragedy.
Every death is a tragedy, but
There's always a but.
there's always a but.
There's always a but. But
However-
Harry, yeah, it's just kind of wearing too thin.
Well,
now.
he's gonna
And I think
just have to
it's
stop,
just going to
isn't
stop. Yeah, I mean, he's literally just got to shut up.
Also,
and
it's
go
that
away.
whole California thing. They're all eating it up there because they're all mad in
Yeah.
California. You know, I remember when I first went
But
to
after
live
the
in-
First Amendment
when I
thing-
first went to live in New York, I'd never seen so many people who they all had a shrink. Everyone you met.
Yeah.
You know, every woman, every bloke. Do you have a shrink? I'm like, no. Why not? Because I'm English.
Do you need one, Mike?
Yeah, probably. I think I'd probably damage the shrink more than they would be able to help me with some of the stories I'd be telling them, you know, about terrible things that have happened to me. So, no. I mean, it's like they say in the movie, that movie that Leonardo DiCaprio's in, The Departed, where
Yeah.
he plays this Irish cop. And he's like, you know, basically, no, it's not him, it's the other guy, the Born Identity guy. And he says, you know, the Irish are basically impervious to psychoanalysis because they're Irish. They're not interested in psychiatrists because no psychiatrist can't work out what's going on. They're too happy, you know. And I think the thing is, there's all sorts of people in America looking for misery
But he's
everywhere
saying
they go.
He's saying he wants to do this Apple Plus documentary because he wants to take control of his narrative that he hasn't been able to for so many times. And it's like, does anyone believe that? It's for the millions of dollars you're
Yeah.
being paid.
Did you
and
watch it?
also,
There's
you're not
also
going to
that.
have control over the narrative
No.
anyway. They
Did you
edit
watch it?
these
I mean,
things.
literally, he's on for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
It's
And they
been
literally
edited.
started with him in the beginning, and then it was like, right, fast forward.
And then
fast
loads of
forward.
other people.
Another 3 minutes,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
I know.
Yeah. So
It's not good. I
but
mean,
I
we'd
think the
like
problem
to-
is he's probably got so much product in the can now that he's actually set the tsunami tidal wave
Yes.
on its path, and he won't be able to get off it for at least 6
I
months.
think, but the point, Kieran
Brilliant
Sullivan
imagery.
said this the other day, that people will just get so fed up listening to it, none of it will break through after a while. People will just go, what's that?
Yeah.
Oh, what, you had a terrible childhood? Yeah, right, okay. You know, next. We've heard all that.
Yeah, what about
Yeah.
everyone else's horrible time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Anything you wish
the
to
millions
tell
of
us?
people who've died of COVID.
Well, there is that. And people who
There
have
is
lost their,
that.
there are people who have lost their businesses, people who have actually, you know.
Imagine the people
Are there
in
people
India
some
watching that.
genuine hardships?
I know.
And then to have him preaching, yes, people can say, great, it's lovely to hear that you've got, you know, mental health issues.
And he's
but-
also hiding behind this thing that he's helping other people. He's not.
No.
How is he helping anybody else?
Yeah.
You know, anyway, enough about him.
Anyway.
He and Meghan are very far and away leading the plank of the year so far with many,
Yeah,
many more points
and
than anybody
Sadiq
else.
Khan.
No, well, he dropped back a bit.
Oh, has he?
Because during the election period, we couldn't nominate him. But don't worry, he'll be back.
He'll be back,
He will
I'm
be
sure,
back.
with a vengeance.
Again.
We are going to carry over this week, though, Sir Keir Starmer, because he was in last week.
Right.
I can't remember what for, but this week I'm putting him in it for his appearance on Piers Morgan's Life Stories.
Okay, yeah.
One, where he appears to be wearing what looks like I know it's not a denim suit, but it looks like a denim suit, which is really naff. But
Never
also,
go double denim.
With the double denim, he's also got the same colour shirt, blue. So he looks like he's in that the Blue Man group. You know, the Blue Man group with the blue faces. I mean, he literally looks like he's in that group, who are very good, by the way. I saw them once in New York. And and then bursts into tears, right?
What?
Apparently, we know how Piers' thing is to try and get you to burst
Yeah.
into tears. So he's managed to get him
Trying to
crying.
humanise himself.
Right, and this is what he thinks is going to help his
Nobody needs
popularity.
to see
Meanwhile, in the polls, he's lost another 2 points. They're now 18 points behind the Tories.
It's like they're, but isn't he going to do a fly on the wall
Yes.
documentary as
Well,
well? And the
well,
most
really?
boring man alive.
Well, as Rod Liddell said, I feel sorry for the fly. It's going to be falling off the wall with boredom, you know. But this is the guy who, you know, he can't
Oh,
get anything
David.
right. You know, he couldn't decide what his policy was on Brexit. He's managed to lose Hartlepool, which even Jeremy Corbyn didn't do.
Yeah.
And he's now going on television weeping. It's something to do with one of his parents, right? But everybody just thinks he's a total, and even his own party don't
Well,
want him.
this is the thing.
He's hopeless.
You'd watch a documentary, a fly on the wall documentary of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
But you'd never watch
Because you
one
know
about
he'd
Keir
just
Starmer.
be really angry all the time. And
which at
also
least would make good
get
TV.
the Venezuelans
Welcome to my
round.
world of beige.
Yeah, I mean, he really, yeah,
It is like that,
just
though.
horrendous. So he's going to be carried over, and also.
when's this broadcast?
But also,
When's this come out? Do we
well,
know?
well, it was filmed, I think, at the weekend. Because
Right.
Piers put a tweet out, and with a caption that said "in the hot seat." I mean, God bless Piers. I mean, I know
Lukewarm?
him very well. I don't think I'm going to be watching it, apart from just for the car crash value of how uninteresting
Or
he is.
insomnia.
I think I preferred Pierce's ones with serial killers.
Yes,
that was good
that's
TV.
a good series.
That was good
That is a
TV.
good series, yeah. But
With
once
a
you're getting
plug
down
for
to
you, Pierce.
once you're getting down to Keir Starmer on Life Stories, you're kind of going, really?
Farrell.
Who's next? You know. But also he's going in there because he hasn't said anything about the BBC, despite the fact that when he was Director of Public
Has he
Prosecution,
not said anything?
nothing. Well,
That's
he's
bad.
not that I know, not that I've seen. Whereas he was ordering, the police to
Oh, he's kicking all over the place.
kicking
Yeah.
indoors of journalists
Doing Operation
when
Wheating
they
and
were
all that.
doing all of
Yeah.
that stuff where
Yeah.
they were arresting people in dawn raids. They were taking kids' computers
So I didn't
out of
know
their
any of
homes.
this.
Well,
Yeah.
because you're probably too young to remember it, right?
Yeah.
When
But
he
now I
was
know.
when he
You
was
see, I had
Director of
a
Public
kind of
Prosecutions,
respect for him when he was
He had a
DPP.
real zealous
Yeah.
approach to taking down journalists. But apparently, it's all right if you're in the BBC. You don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it. You know,
Yeah.
so he's going to be carried over for that. But my first entry is actually to do with the Eurovision, funnily enough.
The
Eurovision.
Eurovision.
And it's a woman I hadn't heard of until this weekend called Rhiannon Spear,
Okay.
who is, of course, in the SNP.
Right.
She represents them at the council level in Glasgow. She's also some kind of women's spokesman or something for the SNP. So she's thought to be quite a firebrand. She put out a tweet on, I think it was Sunday. It's okay, Europe. We hate the United Kingdom too. Love Scotland. You just go, and I just took one look at it and went, that's absolutely idiotic. So I just put McPlank on it. What was even funnier was that her Twitter account, which wasn't followed by that many people anyway, had her phone number on it. Because she basically had, if
Awesome.
you want to get in touch with me, this is my number. She had her mobile number
Who puts
on
their number on
I
their
know.
Twitter?
And she suddenly realised she was getting quite a bit of attention. I assumed that people
What is she,
started
12 or something?
people started calling her, right? Because the next thing that happened was that these tweets are protected. That was the first thing. And then about half an hour later, the account's gone. So she's obviously had a call from somebody in Edinburgh saying, you better get rid of that because
Yeah.
that is not very helpful. And of course, plenty of Scottish people who don't support the
I love
SNP
it.
said, what the hell are you talking about? We don't hate the United Kingdom at all. Who the hell are you speaking for?
Was it-
Shut up.
I'm trying to remember some of the best comebacks to that tweet. I think there were some really funny ones. But I mean, McPlank will do.
Well, actually,
That sort of
I
nails it,
have
really.
noticed
It really does.
this growing sort of trend of various controversial figures who are now disabling the comments to their
Yes,
tweets.
like
I
Diane
noticed
Abbott.
that Diane Abbott,
Yes,
exactly,
that
Diane
you can
Abbott
only,
did
you
it
can
this
only
morning.
comment if
Yeah.
you've been either named in the tweet or
And been invited
if-
to their birthday party.
Yes, something like that. Yeah. If you ever bought one of her shoes.
You can
Yes.
still quote tweet though.
Still looking for
Two
a
leather
pair.
shoes.
She doesn't
Don't
have.
need the rights.
Have you got a pair of shoes? No, I've just got these single ones. That's all right. Sorry.
That's always been my favourite.
Right.
God, yeah.
The two left shoes.
I
just-
know. Incredible.
Brilliant.
I mean, you couldn't make it up. Maybe they're not allowed to
was-
buy right shoes. Maybe that's why. They're going to wear
Well,
left
'cause
shoes.
you left.
Yeah, see what I
know.
mean. See what I mean. Right. So
Brilliant.
who's your second one?
Okay, this is quite a serious one, and I'm sorry I have to bring something quite serious to Plank of the Week. But it is a tome that has been in publication for many, many, many years, certainly since my childhood. The Beano.
The Beano.
And-
Are all of your nominations going to start with the word "the"? So we've had the Eurovision. It's
Hang on,
not
I'm just
the
thinking
Beano.
now. Probably.
It's like how people say the Facebook.
Yes, that's it. The Twitter.
The Twitter. So, The Beano, bless it, has always been a publication of honesty and transparency, I felt, and,
I think so.
and a fair
You can always
representation
rely on it, can't you?
of demographics.
Yes.
And it will touch on those sensitive issues in a non-woke fashion. And much like its sister Viz, it may be deemed, offensive to some.
Yes.
However, wokeness has hit the Beano, and they have now decided to change the name of one of the iconic figures of the Bash Street Kids, Fatty, to Freddie. And to me,
Is he not fatty anymore then?
no, apparently it may upset the Tinkers who are
Right.
reading it,
Okay.
and the association of Fatty.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the body positive movement.
Yes, it could
I
be.
don't know. Personally, I was named after one of the Bash Street Kids when I was a kid. I was called Plug.
Right.
I have no idea
You
why.
do bear quite a striking resemblance, to be fair.
But they did this with Fireman Sam, didn't they? They made
Did
that
they?
become Firefighter Sam, and Sam could be both Samantha or Samuel,
God's
Oh, right.
presumably.
Presumably.
And I don't know, the UN have done all sorts with making.
Well, we have
You
changes.
see,
changed
I mean,
that.
if
We
you
don't-
have Thomas the Tank Engine, it's going to
That was
change.
another one.
It's going to change the whole phonetic of a Tommy Tank,
Yes.
isn't it? Really.
Well, it is. I don't even know what
Carver
that means.
does know what it.
No,
what
but
it
I can
means,
probably
and
hazard
we'll
a
keep
guess.
it between us.
Yeah,
shall we?
let's not go there.
Yeah,
don't-
something crude.
Well, probably.
I don't know.
I'm shocked.
That was great. That was tremendous. That was right out of a period drama. Will!
I think it's straight out of Bridgeton.
Someone did say on Twitter I look like a young Queen Victoria. I don't know what to make of that.
I don't know. I've never seen any young pictures of Queen Victoria. I just always assumed she was really old all the time in every picture. With a big scarf on.
Emily, didn't you say that you knew that there were other names in Beano that they're changing, or someone was coming up with
No,
some
so
alternatives?
the Sun did a write-up of this story,
I love
which
The
was
Sun.
which was quite amusing, tongue-in-cheek, and they suggested that there might be some, other characters that might have their names changed.
Brilliant.
So they had, what was it? They had Porky Pig.
Right.
Yeah.
That might become #body positive pig.
I mean,
Which would be
presumably
rather
they'll
nice.
have to change the Bash Street Kids, won't they? Or have they already done that?
It's actually the community-friendly kids,
Yes.
Then it
not
might
the
be-
Bash Street kids.
Might be She-Man or He-Man might become non-binary them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there were various others, but you could check that out on The Sun if you're so inclined.
Yes.
I will.
But
We
yeah,
should. That's very funny.
quite
But
amusing.
it just depresses me. The wokeness is just taking.
Well, it's
there
like
will
it's
be
nothing
nothing
sacred.
that we could say soon.
It's nothing sacred.
Or we'll be arrested soon. It's one of the two
But
options.
I don't
I
know
know.
if you've looked at children's bookshops now, but the amount of books that are about like social justice or like race relations or about being nice to transgender people, and it's like,
Really?
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't we just have Fatty the Frog?
Yeah,
Is it-
Fatty the Frog. Yeah.
Well, there
Why not?
are some very odd things going on in schools as well. I mean, some of the stuff that my kids are getting taught is quite remarkable.
Really?
Not so much the older one, but the one who's still 14. I mean, it's just this kind of.
Oh, did you
onslaught.
hear about this one the other day about the teacher that gave this talk about pornography in front of all their children? Did you hear this?
No.
All the school class, and started going into subject matters which I won't discuss
No,
on Plank of the
thank
Week,
God for that.
even with our adult audience.
Yes.
But apparently the children
How
were
old
just
were the
like,
kids?
14, about that sort of age, and
Well,
they were
to
like,
be fair, they probably know more about
well,
pornography
exactly.
than the teachers.
They probably knew a great deal more, but it went into some
Flags.
pretty explicit subject matters.
Yeah.
And it's like, really?
You don't really have to talk. It's a bit like the Harry thing. You don't have to talk about absolutely everything
Yeah.
all the time. You
Yeah.
know, leave a few things to the imagination. Maybe
But
let
also-
people discover stuff for themselves.
Yeah.
Do they
Yeah.
have any time to actually teach like maths and English?
No, obviously
Like
not.
you have climate change classes now.
Right.
You have, your BLM classes in
Yeah.
PSHE. You have your, I don't know, whatever
Stonewall
else. but
classes. They
Stonewall
do.
classes.
You can't. My son did German for 2 years, right? I said, "Can you say anything in German?" He went, "No." He couldn't speak any German. I'm like, "What have you been doing for 2 years?"
What's he been doing exactly?
I don't know, but he still, to this day, he doesn't do it anymore. And he didn't do it at GCSE in the end because they dropped it. But he couldn't speak anything. He couldn't say anything in German. I was like, how can you study something for 2 years and not say anything in German? Did they not ask you
No
to
idea.
speak?
Yeah.
People say that like we're a really educated generation, my generation and the younger generation, but I really don't think we are.
No.
You could send 50% of people to university, doesn't make them any smarter.
No, you can't make people smart.
No.
You're either smart or you're not
You're
smart.
either are
You
or
can have
you're
a
not.
qualification if you wish. You can be knowledgeable. You can learn about where the country's capitals are and what they are. But they don't teach them that either.
But kids aren't interested in that because they're taught to be more interested in social justice.
Well, also they think they can Google everything, so
Well,
they don't
that's
think
true,
they
yeah.
need to learn
Yeah,
anything.
I think that's
the other
that-
thing.
that's
I
one of
mean,
the
I used to have a
issues.
producer like that. I was like, well, how can you not know that? He said, why would I need to know it? And I'm like, well, that's a pretty stupid question. Why would I need to know it? Well, because if you know stuff, it's quite a good thing. It's not a
General
bad
knowledge
thing.
is the best thing.
Yeah,
in the
general
world.
knowledge, and the ability to pick things up, the ability to be able to deal with other people, to actually interact with other people.
And a good
Teach them any of that.
dollop of common sense.
Yes,
Of
exactly.
which it is rarely common.
It is. Thank God for Talk Radio in that case. Right, your second nominee, please.
Yes, so mine is a Labour MP, former Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about her shoes.
Yes, we're
Funnily
just talking
enough.
about she's made another very public error, as she usually does.
Not for the first time.
Which one?
Not on maths. not her mathematical skills this time, but rather she's been found to be race baiting with little to no evidence, and has been proven very swiftly wrong. So this refers to the BLM activist Sasha Johnson.
Yes.
Who was shot in the head, apparently, just a few days ago.
Yeah.
And Diane Abbott, of course, decided to go onto Twitter and immediately tweet about it, saying that no woman or no person should be, subject to violence because of their political activism, fighting for black rights or, racial justice and so on. And of course, her friends then end up telling the police that actually this woman was caught in a crossfire between two gangs,
but accidentally,
made up of black men, of course, in this situation.
In Peckham.
And in Peckham. And it's like, so essentially, what are you doing, Diane,
Yeah.
apart from race baiting?
Yes, exactly right.
You can't even get it right.
But you know what? It's kind of the narrative, though, because I was watching when the news broke. I think I was watching Sky. And they've sort of given up on actually doing proper news reporting and actually giving facts.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't say where it happened, didn't say it was in London. All they said was that she had been shot in the head and then she had previously received death threats, as if the two things were connected.
Yeah.
Which, again, nobody was saying. They were saying it, but it wasn't true.
So
Maybe she has had death threats, and that's a terrible thing. And it's awful that she's lying in the hospital now. Hopefully she gets better. But in the end, you can't just start reporting things that aren't true.
No. And also, I think that...
And Diane Abbott, the same goes for her.
I've noticed that there's been a serious adjustment in terms of that analytical approach on some of this reporting, where...
Well, when I was taught how to be a
people would say,
reporter...
okay, what are the causes, what are the reasons, what are the speculations, and keeping them as speculations rather than
you shouldn't really
drawing
even
conclusions.
be speculating if you're reporting on something
I
that's
agree.
happened, particularly when it's just happened, because it's dangerous, apart from anything else. But
absolutely.
who, what, where, when? The 4 W's of reporting news.
Yeah.
You want to know who it's happened to, what's happened, where it's happened, and when did it happen.
Exactly.
It's not difficult.
But also this woman, is an MP for a very diverse black area of London. Like, she should really have a little bit more sense of responsibility than trying to egg on
Well, exactly, because
race
that could have
tensions.
caused for some people to go, well, if that's what's happening now, we better take some revenge.
Well, exactly. And
Very
this poor
dangerous.
woman, who obviously I completely disagree with everything she says, is like sitting in probably a coma or something at this moment.
Yeah.
And this woman is just wittering on Twitter as she does. But I don't think she's
Not
taken
helping.
it down yet. She's the sort of person who just doubles
No,
down.
it's still up. I checked it this afternoon. This
Unbelievable.
morning.
She just doubles down,
Absolutely
doesn't she, the
unbelievable.
silly woman?
But I think
silly.
again, this is the whole Twitter environment. I'm just finding just really quite challenging.
It's
because
becoming very toxic, isn't
people
it?
are just jumping in regardless. Diane Abbott, good case in point.
Yeah.
I need to keep relevant, so here's something.
Yeah.
Here's a way I can do it.
Yes.
And the problem is that people, it's just becoming so
But this is the
toxic.
problem now, like with Keir Starmer, where you're taking somebody's view on something, and then when they don't say something about something else that happens, then they get questioned as to why they didn't say something.
Exactly.
So they really should be a bit more responsible.
Yeah.
I'm going to go slightly over the other side of the room for my next one, because this is about entertainment, not anything very serious. But Drift Live is a company I've never heard of and never wish to hear of again. I also never trust a company that has Drift spelt D-R-I-I-F-T with 2 I's.
Drift.
I mean, unless it's Scandinavian, which I don't think it is. But their Twitter account says, we produce and promote world-class, immersive and interactive online live ticketed events.
That puts me off immediately.
Which I'm afraid not only is a complete and utter misrepresentation of what they do,
Very long sentence.
it's entirely wrong, because what they don't do is produce and promote anything at all which is any good, because
don't do spelling.
these are the people that were hired by Glastonbury to put out this virtual concert to the world, right? Coldplay were the headliners, there were a whole bunch of other bands on as well. The big problem was people paid something like 40 quid plus, I think, to get access to the live stream. And it was up against Eurovision for a start, the Eurovision, I should say.
The Eurovision,
It's come
Mike.
back into play. And it didn't work. And so they were putting out, we apologise, they put this out like literally about 58 minutes after the live stream was due to have started. We apologise to those who have not yet been able to access the stream. Though here is a new link with no code to access the stream. We are truly sorry for the inconvenience. And that didn't work either.
Brilliant.
So in the end, after about an hour and a half, so the concert's practically over.
Yeah.
The guys at Glastonbury realised this was such an absolute, nightmare and complete disaster that they just put the live stream out for free. And so all the people that had paid for it were then going, well, no, anyone could watch it. What
Exactly.
and they haven't offered
Yeah.
anyone a refund. They've basically
No,
said...
they haven't offered them a refund.
They basically said to them, because they had already planned to re-show it at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. on the following day, right, Sunday. So they gave the people who had bought the Saturday night feed, which is pretty greedy, it seems to me. And if you've paid 40 quid,
Who
surely
would
you
pay
should
for a feed?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, this is where we've.
Oh, no,
this
no,
is
no.
what
A lot
we've
of
become.
this is going on right
This
now.
is
A lot
what
of
we've
artists have
become.
been
I mean,
doing
I
it,
know
yeah.
some people that have been doing like live theatre shows.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair to them to try and put on something when you
Yeah,
can't
but Coldplay
really,
doesn't need the money. I mean, really?
It reminds me of that of that, what was it, that festival that was put on in the US that was an absolute
Fire
disaster.
Festival.
Yeah, Fire Festival.
Oh, that's
where it was
festival.
absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah.
And nothing was there.
It's absolutely incredible. So
Fire
they
Festival.
I
just
love
said
that.
so they basically granted access to the 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Sunday
Yeah.
stream if you'd paid for the Saturday night one that you weren't able to watch. But presumably, I'm assuming if you've done something like that, you've maybe got people coming round, you have a few drinks, you have a bit of a party. Let's watch Coldplay. I mean, it's not for
Return.
me. It's not for me, but you're all just sitting there going, I guess we'll have to watch Eurovision then, or the Eurovision.
Yeah, that's really added to the numbers.
Can you imagine anything more depressing? But then again, Coldplay demographic, the Eurovision.
So here's the here's the lineup, right? Some of whom you might have seen. Wolf Alice, who I haven't actually heard of. George Ezra was there. Haim, Coldplay, Damon Albarn, The Smile, Kano, DJ Honey Dijon. I don't know
DJ
about
Honey
that one.
Dijon.
Who's that? Do you know who that is?
Absolutely
I have
no
no
idea.
idea. Anyway, so just an incredibly useless cock up, really. And so you'd like to think they'd be out of business, but I presume some idiot will go and give them some more work to do.
They'll probably have huge insurance.
But I don't think they'll be going back to Glastonbury anytime soon.
No, I don't think Glastonbury will be having them back. But I think they've got to refund everybody's money. I mean, that's
Well, you would have
ridiculous
thought
otherwise.
so.
I mean, when you said the second link that they put up and they said, look, you don't even need a passcode
Yeah,
to get in.
right.
You can guarantee that the reason it probably didn't work is because everyone then passed on that free code to everybody and then it crashed their servers.
Yes.
And then it didn't work.
Yeah, but that's obviously what happened in the first place.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do a live event, because that's what you do,
Yeah.
it's on live stream because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You should really make sure that you can do it. I mean, if I was putting on a live stream,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be surprised if it didn't
Well, you
work
would have
very
thought
well.
Glastonbury would have turned around and said, okay, let's check these
I
guys'
think
credentials.
I think Glastonbury were absolutely livid.
Yeah, I bet they
because I
were.
mean, the thing about
Yeah.
whether you like them or not, I mean, they do put on a pretty good festival, and they
Yeah.
are pretty professional
yeah.
about what they do.
You've been, haven't you?
You know.
I have been. I
Yes.
have been once, yes.
Well, I have not been. and
I've
I'm
not
never
been
going.
And I saw Coldplay.
Oh God! I mean, I have actually been to Glastonbury because I used to live not far from there, and we used
Yeah.
to like to go there for sort of Sunday lunch.
You live
and
in the
stuff.
West Country.
Yeah, I lived in Wiltshire.
How lovely.
Very Devizes. don't you know?
Devizes.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Very nice indeed. Yes. Anyway, so your third one, Will.
So my third one is Norwich Council.
Ah, yes.
What have they done?
So Norwich Council, this is just again wokeness that just drives me insane. So in the same week as we had the memorial 7 years ago of Lee Rigby being murdered by two terrorists,
Yeah.
and 4 years ago we have the anniversary of the Manchester Arena terrorist attack.
Yes.
Norwich Council believed that it's important to commemorate the death, albeit unjustly, of a criminal 3,500 miles away,
Yes.
George
all the
Floyd.
rage.
On the same. Oh.
So they decide, rather than commemorating one of these two very iconic situations which had happened here in the UK, they decide to commemorate George Floyd's
Why do
death
they do this?
with a light show on Norwich Council Town Hall. And
They're not the only ones, by the way, because I think there's a couple of other places doing it as well.
And don't
I
get
think
me wrong,
Rochdale was doing
I
it as
think
well.
the George Floyd thing was a hideous injustice, and Chauvin's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. But hang on a second, we need to look at things a little closer to home and a little more relevant, I think.
Yeah, but also, again, as Emily says, it's not about commemorating the death of someone. It's about showing everyone else how woke they are.
Yeah,
Isn't this
exactly.
great? And
Which
it's
is
public
exactly
money,
what it was.
presumably, they're spending on the light
Yeah.
show.
Sure.
We'll be getting the bill for that.
Yeah.
It's like.
And what's it got to do with Norwich? Sorry.
No, yeah, what on earth has it got to do with
You know.
Norwich? And why is every single council, institution, national trust, whatever, like, controlled by this kind of thinking?
I know.
It's all very suspicious.
It is
isn't it?
very bizarre. And because most
People
of the
need to rise up. I think they are.
most of the people in this country do not give a stuff about that kind of virtue signaling. They just
No.
don't. I mean, they're not.
sorry, I
They're
don't-
not bad people. They're
No.
not horrible. They're not happy that George Floyd was killed by a police officer.
course not.
But they don't want it shoved in their face every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you presumably a lot of the council members, probably the majority of them, weren't too keen on this, but they just went along with it, probably because otherwise they'd
Probably
be called
because
racist.
they
Can
would
you
have been
imagine?
shot
Yeah.
down.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine the one guy going, "Excuse me, I don't think it's a very good idea." What?
Racist.
You know,
Get out.
racist.
Well, it's,
You know.
it's like the National Trust too, where there's a group in them who are trying to, get rid of the chairman or the head of it because he's he's taken it too woke
Yes.
and whatever. And I think they actually might manage
I
to
think
oust
that might
him.
work, actually.
They
That
might
would
manage
be
to oust
amazing.
him.
That would be amazing.
Again, this is the thing that worries me about this whole wokeness, that if you put
That
your
could
hand
set
up...
off a tidal wave.
I know, it could.
put your hand
I'm
up
waiting
to-
for that.
to-
I'm sure at some point or other, I always ask this to people when I'm talking to them, at what point do you think people will stop this nonsense? Because I think they
It's
will.
over.
I
Reach now,
don't
isn't
know. I think the problem is the moment you put your hand up is the moment you get shot down. If you have anything
Yeah,
of an
but there's always
opposition
one.
view.
There's always one
Unless you're
person.
Carver.
No, but there's
I haven't been shot down yet.
there's always one moment. I think.
Kevlar Carver, as we call
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
I think there's always one moment that sort of everything pivots on and it all changes, and I
Yeah.
don't know when that's going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be soon. I mean,
I'm looking forward to that day.
I was saying this on when we did that show in the pub on Monday.
Yeah.
Which Will did attend.
I
by the
did.
way.
Did
you?
I
yes,
was.
He was
Were
there.
you there, Carver?
He was there.
Of course you were.
She was
No, I
working.
was doing my day
She was
job.
doing her day job.
Oh, okay.
But I was walking through London Bridge Station, right, to get to the pub, as you do at 9 o'clock
As
in the
you
morning. The worst thing was, right, I got there and it was locked, so I was like, I hope nobody's filming this, because I'm like banging on the door. Let me in! It's 9 o'clock in the
need a
morning.
drink.
Get me in, I need a drink.
You can imagine in
Like,
the
can you
Express.
imagine, right?
Like-
So, but I walked through, like, everywhere you look, there's a sign, right?
Yeah.
Over there, please keep your distance, please wear a face covering.
Yeah.
Be kind, even, was a sign.
Be kind.
Yeah.
What, in the
Really,
pub?
because we do
No,
need
this
to be
was London
reminded.
Bridge Station.
Oh,
Literally
right.
every
Because
single.
I have these
every
outbursts
single-
of violence that I can't predict,
Yeah.
so it's nice to have these
But
reminders
it starts to drive you
occasionally.
insane.
Just
I
be
started
kind, Carver.
swearing at these
Yeah.
signs as I'm walking through like some demented maniac, because it starts to really wind you
Yeah, but
up.
they'll probably just think they need more of them.
Yeah.
For Michael, yeah. Mike's coming through. Make sure we have a be kind every 5 feet.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Because he keeps
Just to remind
shouting
him.
and we
I
don't know
know.
why.
And he's
And I now
frightening-
just walk,
frightening
if
people.
they tell you to walk in like this direction, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to walk over here. I was at Kensington.
Such a rebel.
I know, Kensington High Street
I'm like
Station the
that
other day,
Yeah.
and they've got now the two sides of the stairway.
Yeah.
The right-hand side's got little no entry
Oh, I
signs
always go
on
up
it.
that way.
So I'm
Yeah.
going up
Yeah,
there.
I do. Yeah.
You want to stop me?
I
Good
got
luck.
shouted at by a mad person
Did
the
you?
other day, yeah. But then again,
That's
that's,
not very
a normal
wise of
day
you.
in the,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
life of Will Geddes.
This was one of your ex-girlfriends, presumably, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's not very wise of them.
So where are we up to now? Is it? Oh yeah, you're doing
So,
Norwich.
so Norwich Council, yes, commemorating George Floyd, commendable
Planks.
but not commendable.
Yeah,
Planks, I'm
absolutely.
afraid.
I'm happy-
Sorry,
I'm happy
all
with that.
done with West.
These are some good. These are some good first-time entries. These.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
I don't think
you
we've
know, this
ever
is what
had
happens when
Norwich
you get
in
me
it.
back,
I
Mike.
don't think we've ever had Norwich in the
you
place.
go.
So I just like to bring back the old classics.
Go on. What have you got for your third one?
I'm
then?
sure someone you've had on your programme before. He's
Just the once.
He's the Brexit campaigner who still seems to be
What's he
campaigning
campaigning for
about
now?
it.
What's he campaigning for now?
Well, he's actually campaigning against first past the post.
Is he?
Because obviously that's the
on, first
big
past-
issue of our time.
What's this?
Our
Yeah, well,
voting system.
this is why the lefties have now worked out that because they're so useless, they'll never actually win an election. Time to change the way everybody votes,
Yes.
and then they might
Okay.
have a chance.
Exactly.
Right.
But don't worry, they'll still lose. It doesn't matter which system you use. Keir Starmer
course they
stands.
will,
He
yes.
ain't winning anything.
So he's decided to attack Britain in a different way over
Oh, yeah.
our electoral system, but he's done so in a pretty plankish manner, as usual for him.
Yeah.
He's decided
He loves
that
being on Plank of the Week as well. He has been on before.
he was referring to, of course, the incident by the Belarusian dictatorship, who essentially hijacked a plane this week with
Has to be a Ryanair plane,
a journalist.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as
Mike
if you don't
O'Leary
need any
would not
more
be
reasons
happy.
not to fly on Ryanair. Oh yeah, they hijacked them now in Belarus.
With a journalist on it, of course, which we now have seen was anyway. We know that Belarus is called the last dictatorship of Europe,
Yes.
so it's
Yeah.
not a very nice
Yeah.
country,
It
and
really
it's not
isn't.
run by a very nice man.
No.
Anyway, he decided that because we share the same voting system
Oh, yeah.
as Belarus, that therefore we're just as bad as them when
What?
it comes to
I mean,
our
even
democracy.
even for him, that's pretty mad.
Even for him, it's pretty bad. And I do think that maybe his tight t-shirts are sort of, I don't know,
They're
cutting
constricting
off,
his blood supply.
cutting off the oxygen to his brain or something, because he seems to be just totally verbally incontinent.
He really is. I mean, I don't know why,
mean,
but
straws
Talk Radio,
clutch.
Talk
Yeah.
Radio keeps putting him on various shows. He doesn't come on my show because I wouldn't have him on anymore because he's so useless. But
But
I
you
mean,
decided to ban all the Novara media types,
well,
so
exactly,
the
yeah.
Ashsakar and
yeah,
the
they're never going to be on
Arabistanis.
my show because they're complete and utter planks. They're not even worthy of being on Plank of the Week.
Yeah.
But but he in particular, every time he's on, he just uses the same arguments about everything. Whatever it is that he's arguing about, it's the same. And then he makes these bizarre comparisons, like saying that is a bit like saying this,
Yeah.
and you go, Why do you keep making the same point over and over again, like about different things?
But also, I think the most plankish thing is, of course, this is a young man who, well, he's not that young anymore. He pretends to be young.
He's about 35,
He pretends
isn't
to be young. He's a man who spent, 5 years of his life without a proper job, campaigning against Brexit, trying to thwart Brexit, trying to overturn it or whatever. And now he's decided to lecture us on what democracy means and how we're similar to Belarus in that respect. So, I mean, it's plankish on many accounts. But of course, he doubles down.
He does, and his qualification, as he always is happy to remind people, is that I studied EU law. And you go, so what?
I studied the EU too. I don't go on about
he
it.
Actually worked as like an intern in Europe somewhere for some law firm. He's not even a
I'd
lawyer.
love to see how long he lasted if he went to Belarus too.
Well, I don't think very long.
Yeah.
I think you'd find they'd take him into a small room on arrival
Who
and
are
hit
also
him with an
not
iron
known
truncheon.
and they're not known for their best makeup
But I
skills,
think-
as we've seen with the recent statement by the
Well, that was
blogger.
quite terrifying, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible.
He did not look as if he was in a good way.
He wasn't in a good way.
And he
that's
has
obvious.
confessed, however, to organising mass demonstrations.
Yes, and he was guilty of everything.
So they don't like mass demonstrations. They won't want Femi there, will they?
The thing is, he obviously hadn't thought about it much. So after a few minutes, after people started, pointing out that he was being an absolute moron, he decided to list all the ways in which we're a dictatorship on a par as Belarus. And,
I've got to see this.
It's amazing.
It was. Yes, I mean, you can read it and see. I think I'd advise you to read the comments.
Where does
instead.
he get his money from, this guy? I mean, because he can't...
Does he
doesn't-
actually
I
have
think
a
he
day
must have
job?
a rich family. I think he
must.
went to a very posh
I think his
public
dad's a
school.
doctor or something, isn't
Yeah,
he?
I think he went to a smart, posh, whatever you want to call it, school. So
Where they
yeah.
taught him his American accent.
Yes, probably one of those international schools.
Well-known northeastern English accent that he's got. Because he's always going, I'm from Darlington. Are you? Really?
Darlington,
It's an interesting
really?
accent. Darlington.
But he's
Darlington, South Carolina, for heaven's sake. Right. Well, this is a really good collection of people. I'm going to go for the man who has been the man of the moment for my final nomination, and it is, of course, none other than Mr. Martin Bashir. Not because of what he did in 1995, right, which was bad enough, and which may end up being a criminal offence, right?
I kind of hope so.
Yeah, I think he should be
think so.
certainly pulled in front of...
He needs his collar felt.
Of the CID in the Metropolitan Police to be asked a few questions, because who on earth, I mean, you and I have been in this business, I don't know we're in the same business exactly, but similar. There's a bit of crossover.
Bit of crossover, Michael.
Occasionally from
We're in
time
the
to
security
time.
business.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, you don't go around getting forged documents made up and not to show them to anyone.
Exactly.
And he's trying to make out that that's what happened, that he had these forged documents, but he wasn't really doing anything with them. So that's our final 9. All we have to do now is reduce them down to 3. So if you remember, I know that's been a long time, Will,
yes.
why don't you pick your favourite one of Emily's to start off with?
Okay, Emily, remind me. We've
Your
got
3.
Lammy,
Harry,
Harry,
Diane Abbott, and Femi Oluwole.
Diane Abbott.
Diane Abbott.
Fair
in
enough.
you go.
She
Straight
is.
in.
She is a plank.
That's good. Okay, so now you want to pick mine. My 3 are Rhiannon Spear from the SNP, the Drift People from Coldplay's Disaster, and Martin Bashir.
Well, I think we've got to go with Martin Bashir.
I think you probably
Just so
have
he's
to.
up there.
He does need
Just
to be
so
in
he's
the
up
top
there.
3.
Although the other two, are fun ones.
Tough one.
They are very good. I don't think Drift are ever going to be in it again, as I can't imagine they're ever going to do any business ever again.
That's the thing. You kind of want them to be,
We
have
can
their
make it
moment.
Regular.
fourth.
Yeah.
Right, so
And
yours,
mine were the Eurovision,
yes,
the Beano,
and the Norwich Council.
and the Norwich Council. There's a lot of those.
Do you know, I think it's got to be the Eurovision, hasn't it?
I
I mean,
so.
that's timely. 'Cause,
So many.
Again, they're not going to be in it until at least next year,
Yeah, exactly.
presumably. And who knows, we might not even be here then. So, all right, so Eurovision, Martin Bashir and Diane Abbott.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
It's a pretty good
Yeah,
top
that's a
3.
good. That's a good.
It's a pretty good top
cross-section
3.
there. Yeah.
I mean, I would probably go with Martin Bashir, only because he has been in the news now
It's the story of the...
since Friday, and it's shortly going to be Wednesday.
I think he deserves it.
I think so. Would
Yeah.
you go with him as number 1?
I would. I'd go with him as number 1.
And the
I was
Eurovision,
going to
maybe?
do Martin Bashir and the BBC.
Yeah, do you know, I did think about that, but they were in it last week.
Oh, okay, well then.
The BBC for, just being useless, because last week, this time, they had already taken the decision not to show the Panorama investigation into themselves. They'd said, well, we've made the film, but we're not going to actually air it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was only because there was a massive outcry from everyone with a brain who went, wait a minute, mate, you have to show this to people. People have to see it. And actually, it was quite good.
Yeah.
You know.
I haven't watched it. I have to watch it.
You should. It's good.
I must say the story left the homepage of the BBC quite quickly.
Funny.
Well, isn't that funny? Well, also people have been tweeting. I mean, Jeremy Vine tweeted yesterday apparently that there should now be. He was finding it difficult to disagree with the guy in who used to be the prosecutor up in Yorkshire. You know, Nafez.
Nazir,
Yeah. Nazir, is it?
I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Forgive me.
Anyway, he was calling for a criminal investigation. Jeremy Vine said it's
Yeah.
hard to disagree that there should be a criminal investigation.
Yeah.
And suddenly he was asked, apparently, by the BBC to take his tweet down.
What? You serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't see
Hugh
him
Edwards, I
doing that
think, was
because
the
he is
same.
quite a guy of integrity as well.
Hugh Edwards, interestingly, also tweeted out about how he didn't take too kindly to being lectured at by some of the corners of the media that weren't exactly whiter than white, like he was making out like the tabloids shouldn't be telling us how to behave.
That's irrelevant.
Whoa.
It
It's
doesn't matter how the
irrelevant.
tabloids.
And he had
Yeah.
to take that down as well.
Really?
So they're all still at it in there. They still don't get it. They don't get the fact that most people in this country now really don't trust them and really don't like the BBC.
I don't think there's a serious question to ask whether we should be funding them anymore.
Oh, totally.
You know, because there are
Totally.
all these streaming services. You know,
I mean, it's going to become an irrelevance because young people are going to grow up and they're not going to start
My
watching
kids
the BBC.
don't watch television.
Yeah.
You know?
It's YouTube only.
They
Oh,
watch
everybody I know
YouTube,
is on streaming stuff. and
or they
that's
watch
it, I mean,
Netflix, or
yeah.
they watch Disney, or whatever it is.
Or
You know,
TikTok.
we seem to have all of them. Or TikTok. You know, I seem to be paying through the
You
nose.
should get a TikTok.
Yeah, well, people have
you got a TikTok,
I think I'm
Emily?
way too old.
I have an account. I don't use it.
I'm way too old for TikTok, I think.
Yeah,
Also,
me
isn't it
too.
just about people doing stupid stuff and like boomerang shots of them dancing and
I
things?
think you could do some pranks.
Pranks?
Yeah.
It's not really
Little
me,
dance
is it?
routine.
No, I don't think so. You'd have to get me pretty drunk before you got. That would pretty.
Mike and I could do dance routines
Right.
on TikTok. There's
Well-
stuff to give you nightmares.
Well, maybe we could reenact the,
No, maybe not.
Land of Hope and Glory.
No.
No.
You see,
No.
I tried to ruin your
I
reputation.
hope you